All right. Hey everyone, good afternoon. My name's Sarah Marshall. I work with Mechanics Bank. I'm their social media manager, digital marketing specialist. We're going to talk about creating consistent and on-brand social media content today. So a little bit about Mechanics Bank. We were founded over a century ago. We are headquartered in Walnut Creek and currently have over 100 branches all throughout California. Kind of spread evenly between northern and southern, but we are California specific. We are a full service regional community bank serving retail, commercial, and wealth management. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is just kind of how large social media is. I feel often when we talk about social media, uh, it can be kind of a broadly used term and it can be kind of ethereal, kind of hard to define. According to a Forbes article, there are 4.9 billion people on social media as of last year. Do you expect that number to increase by about 85, up to about 5.85 billion users over the next few years? Within that frame as well, each user is on between 5, 6, and 7 different platforms. So really emphasizing how important it is not only to be on different platforms, but to know what audience is on there and know how to serve them strategically. Some of our social media objectives are really centered around being involved in our community and letting our community know that we are there to serve them. We are a Main Street, not a Wall Street bank. So, when you walk down your street or down your downtown, people have many places to choose from. We like to really emphasize that we are that Main Street feel. We are your next door neighbors. Maybe you want to come have a beer with us, something like that. That's kind of the approach we like to take. We are very community centric. We really do like getting our people out in the community. And as we'll see later on, our community likes to see us serving it as well. We get lots of engagement in that regard there. In addition to being big on being in our communities, much like most of you, we just aim to educate our followers. We were talking before the previous discussion. Fraud is kind of a huge, heavy, important topic that if you're not seeing it professionally, you are seeing it personally as well. So we just really like to promote that type of financial education and that awareness to our clients and even to our employees as well. Some of the metrics that we look at to define success for us are follower growth, engagement growth, and overall reach. Again, this will differ depending on what your strategies are, what your goals are, who your audience is, a number of different variables there. But those are kind of three main KPIs that we've really honed in on focusing on over the last couple of years or so. I did want to take a real moment to highlight brand alignment and to talk about how key that is in terms of social media, especially for the industry that we serve. Our industry is very different from other industries. We're heavily regulated, and we just need kind of a different approach in that regard. We really, again, like to emphasize our customer service, building trust, building those relationships, showing people that they matter when they walk through our doors and that they matter when they're out in our communities as well. Couple of things to really highlight in terms of being a brand that is aligned is having a really strong brand guidelines. When I first started in my role, one of the first things I did was I printed our brand guidelines and I saved them digitally. And I must have referred to them, if not multiple times a day, at least once a day. Now that I've gotten a better grip on some of those things in there, I don't necessarily refer to it as often, but it is something that helps drive every piece of content that I create. In addition to kind of turning into that brand guidelines, one of the things that helps drive my role and frankly makes my role a lot easier to manage is having a consistent content calendar and having that calendar live somewhere that's accessible to whoever needs to have access to it, other departments, other stakeholders, and being able to take time to cross-collaborate and really share ideas and share feedback on that calendar. And then lastly, one of the things we'll talk about today too is analyzing performance metrics, just really establishing what your goals are in that regard and measuring your success up against it. So back in the spring of 2023, we wanted to create a campaign that really established us in our community, that allowed our relationship managers to be out getting FaceTime with their clients, and just to really assure kind of a nervous public during a time of great disruption around regional banking. We created basically two different campaigns. One kind of clean branded text graphics that stemmed from quotes from our president. As you can see, just other quotes that really help establish who we are as a brand. And then a second campaign that we ran was actually a selfie campaign. And we'll look at both of the results of those next. So these are the results that we saw. Around May and June of last year, we published a total of 36 social media posts, mostly organic. We did take a look at the performance of that those organic campaigns, as you can see. And then late in May, we did decide to strategically implement some paid campaigns as well. We saw a really great return on our investment there. We found that our success was really aligned strategically with our goals and with our objectives as well. So it was just overall really great numbers and a really great couple of campaigns for us. As I mentioned, one of the types of campaigns that we did was just clean branded text graphic. Example on the left is actually a video that we ran. It was just a really nicely animated video. And then the paid ad you see on the right was just a static image. One of the things I love to call out on this slide is that you can see under interactions, we got one, that's a comment or something there, and that was actually lower than typical for this time frame. I don't know how many of you actually know how many people comment on your social media pages. Ours are typically pretty low. It's not the highest of engagements there. So we were really excited to see that not only were we getting an interaction, but that typically we were getting more than just one at that time. So this was a really interesting campaign that we ran during that time frame and saw some really great results from as well. The second type of campaign that we ran, we titled Selfies from Main Street, and we basically just sent out selfie sticks to our different branches and encouraged our branch managers to get out in their communities, get into their clients' businesses, say hi to them, check in on them, see how they're doing, and just take a nice photo with them. They would send that over to us, and we would ask them for a little bit of just information about the business owners, whatever they could tell us from their perspective. You can glean a lot from a website, but you can get a lot more from a conversation. So just wanted to kind of talk about the depth of this campaign. We got over 50 selfies that we were able to run on social media. Our relationship managers and other bankers were really excited about this campaign. Like every day I would get more and more selfies coming in, almost more than I could handle, but we were able to spread them out pretty evenly. And it was just a really fun campaign for them to go out, kind of two accomplishments with one goal at the same time, getting out to see their clients and getting a bit social media presence as well. We did see great results from our organic campaigns with these selfies. As you can see, we were getting just tons and tons of interactions and just really, really great results there. So we did decide to run a paid campaign behind a number of them, and also saw some really great numbers that really did tie directly back into our objectives and some of our goals there as well. So it was just really, really fantastic campaign overall, and the time frame just worked for what was happening regionally as well. So getting into the hows of it, we did talk a little bit about establishing objectives and how important it is to be able to tie those goals back there. And I think one of the things that's most important to talk about when we talk about social media and like posting frequency and engagement is, anyone can post anything, and we do know that, right? But really, it should have a purpose. It should have an established reason why we're sharing it, and it should go back to a goal, should tie back to what you're trying to accomplish directly. Within that kind of mindset, it's so important to know who your audience is, to know which platforms you should be on, which ones you're maybe not on yet, and to really have a good mixture of content. We again saw so much great content from that user-generated, those selfies, those unedited photos, that we wanted to kind of balance it out with some animated features as well. We all know how well video does and all of that. So really great to have a calendar that can help you just make sure that you're posting a good mixture of content, that you're not posting too much of the same thing, or that if, like we were just previously talking about, if you are seeing really great numbers from something that you're already posting, how to highlight that without oversaturating it at the same time. So really just working to develop a variety of content and just really seeing how user-generated content fits into your strategy as well. A lot of times it can be either a hit or a miss there. People either shy away from the camera or really, really enjoy getting in front of it. So it's great to be able to experiment with different types of content and to be able to offer that to different facets of your employee base or your audience as well. Some other key points, so as we know in the financial industry and really across the board in any industry as well, getting approvals is key. Getting stakeholders on board, getting your regulatory and compliance people on board, just getting all of those approvals kind of pushed through and through. Especially if you are posting about timely content, whether that is like a trend you're hopping on or potentially even like a new type of fraud education piece that you're trying to put out. I think that's kind of what we tend to see most often in terms of like really timely content is like, this is a new scam that is happening. How do we inform our client base as quickly as possible? And so for me, that just means getting all the information and getting that information to whomever it needs to go to as quickly as possible. And again, for me, going back to my wonderful spreadsheet, my calendar is how I'm really able to make sure that I'm crossing all those T's and dotting those I's. Additionally, addressing engagement is really important. Social media is a two-way street, and it's so important to be able to respond timely to comments that you're receiving or other types of engagement that you're getting. Highly recommend if you're able to implement a social listening tool and to be able to just monitor anytime that you're mentioned directly or indirectly or other keywords that might pop up specific to your company or your goals there as well. We do typically see a lot of client interaction of things like, your ATM is down in this location or things like that. So it is my responsibility and my role to be able to kind of route that information where it needs to go. And I think social media has kind of found this niche of being kind of like a customer service sphere. And also just kind of this other sphere that people love to yell into. Just really being able to address what you're hearing, what you're getting directly to whomever you're talking to, as well as bubbling it up as well. And then lastly, it's really important to just be able to measure your results and think about your next steps. How do you know if what you're doing is really working unless you're measuring it and being able to point back to that success? So really going back to your objectives to be able to understand which metrics you should be really reaching to. Again, it's reminds me of being in school when you're striving to get A's on every single class. And maybe that is possible for you, but I think it's really important to be able to kind of hone in on what your specific goals are. Again, if it is follower growth, if it is engagement rate, if it's just posting more consistently in general, how are you measuring that? And just really to be able to look at your data and let it speak to you. If you are posting and seeing some really great success, again, how do you dig further into that, create more of that content, let it be evergreen, let it be something that can be used again a couple months from now, reposted, something like that. So that's what we'll get into next here. So once you have your content out into the world, kind of that next or kind of final step after you've addressed some of that engagement that you've gotten is just taking a look at your results and figuring out what your next step is. This here is just a dashboard that I created. You can tell I'm an Excel girl. And so I put this together every month and then again at the end of every year where I basically take just all of our raw data that LinkedIn and Meta gives us, put it into a pivot table, put it into a chart, add some labels, evaluate from there. I like to do longer written recaps as well, just because I feel like when you're bubbling information up to stakeholders, again, numbers and charts can mean almost anything. And I think in social media, we get so ethereal. Sometimes it is really important to be able to point back to it and say, no, this was successful for this reason. And I know it for these reasons why. I typically also will highlight our top 3 performing posts. Again, top 3 performing meaning for us, typically highest engagement rate, or if we did typically see a lot of comments or things like that, just out of the average range for us there. Keeping an eye on follower growth as well, and then using what we have this month to measure back to previous months as well, just to really be able to define our growth and how it's tying back to our objectives there. So just kind of wrapping up social media is all about building relationships, and it is that two-way street. So it is a wonderful opportunity to be able to utilize your social media as such. It is a responsibility as well. It is that two-way street, that double-edged sword as well. But doing so will really help not only build a strong connection to your audience, it can help really reaffirm your internal culture as well. As I mentioned when we were running that selfie campaign, I had the pleasure of interacting with bankers and other financial associates who I would never have had the pleasure of interacting with, but we got so much buy-in in that regard. And we know that we got a lot of engagement on LinkedIn as well from our internal employees. People love to see themselves and their friends shouting out in the comments and all that as well. Just really fantastic opportunity to be able to build that strong connection with our audience, to be able to provide some free promotion to our small business clients and things like that during a tough time as well. So really with planning and effort, you're able to create content that speaks to your audience, that speak to you as a brand, and that you're able to be proud of at the end of the day and say, yes, this was successful for us for these reasons, and just kind of build that loyal following and that trust amongst your client base. I'll open the floor up to any questions at this point. Yeah, there's a microphone coming to you.
You left out the one big gotcha
Mm-hmm.
for finance,
Mm-hmm.
compliance.
Mm.
How are you handling that? Because if you're moving very, very quickly, you will get in trouble eventually. I can tell
Right.
you, there's auditors, there's people getting fined all over right now, SEC, they're looking for this kind of thing. So what are you doing to stay moving quickly, and including your process flow with your compliance officer or whomever has to edit and
Yeah.
approve all of your material?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for me, what that looks like is turning back to my content calendar and being able to kind of work backwards from that deadline and say, if we're trying to push this out by Friday, I typically get that to compliance by Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest. We have a fantastic compliance team that's really able to turn that content around relatively quickly, every now and then a little bit slower, but we're really able to run that through them. If they have any feedback, I, again, have been in my role for about 2 years now, so I typically am able to kind of catch a lot of those, like, oh, we need to add that on there. Or I know they're going to be looking for this, to kind of bypass some of that extra iterations, but definitely just running everything through them, taking any of their feedback, implementing it as quickly as possible, and getting any other sign-offs that we need to there. We happen to utilize Rike for all of that, so it's easy as a relative term. There are ways to be able to track back and to be able to say, yes, I got sign off at this time on this date. And there's that paper trail that's there as well, but that's kind of how we're able to do that. Does that kind of answer your question? Cool. Yes, archiving. Absolutely.
Does your compliance department have to sign off on your responses to comments?
That's a great question.
I
I'm
know
trying to
ours
think.
does.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. At this point, no, they do not. Yeah, in that regard. Yeah.
If you're using a software system to post, or are you manually going into Facebook and LinkedIn and
Totally.
doing it?
95% of our posts we run through Hootsuite. Occasionally, if we ever have a something that needs to be uploaded that is like a carousel where the first image is animated and the remaining images are static, then I will do that natively. And there are scheduling, like on LinkedIn and others, you can set schedule to post. But 95% of our content, once it is approved, just goes right into Hootsuite, and we're able to segment or post or do paid ads through there as well. Originally, I was running all the ads kind of manually, and we just found that was just such a time suck for all of us. And a lot was just getting lost in the cracks, and just, where is this? This got lost. We didn't ever end up sharing this. Whereas if I could just get it in a scheduling software, say that it's either in a draft or scheduled to post, it was just a lot more successful for us.
Question.
Yeah.
Do you break your content apart between LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and make posts that are really specific to those platforms for the target audience there?
Yes and no. We do segment. I wouldn't say that we segment in a way that is like so differentiated. When I look at the data, what we typically see is that on Facebook, our base client or our base audience there is women ages 65 and above. So typically for us, we know that we're going to target any of our fraud prevention tips that are for that client base, that age group, kind of on Meta. But it's also, for a topic like fraud, it's so prevalent for anyone. We do put it everywhere. I will say that for a lot of our content that is like user-generated content from our employees, things like our Halloween photos, or we ran like a Veterans Day kind of series. We do find that typically performs best on LinkedIn. Our people are on LinkedIn. I can tag them. They can reshare it. It's a little Facebook. People don't always want to reshare work stuff there. So we do tend to segment more of our internal culture content towards LinkedIn, and then segmenting some fraud and other financial education pieces as well. But most of it does kind of typically flow to each platform there. This is kind of the only one that we really will either stay away from just because that content character limit is so small, or because of the way that the framing cuts off some of the images there. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Are you you showed some paid ads up there in one of your campaigns? Are you boosting your social posts? And if so,
Yeah.
how do you decide what to boost and what not to boost?
For sure. So we will often run a paid ad kind of as just not taking an organic post and boosting, but running a paid ad just as an ad. We did with that previous campaign with some of the selfies, we did take our highest organic performing selfies and just boosted some of those. We put a budget of, I think, $2,500 around that. We put $2,500 behind our paid campaign for the branded graphics. So we put the same amount behind that campaign as well. We will also run paid ads for things like our open positions or relocations of our branches. Those ones tend to be a much smaller budget, maybe $250, maybe $500, because when I go into that Facebook Ads Manager, I'm able to see that our population in that particular area is not very large. Typically, if we're highlighting an open role on Facebook, it's because the population is very low in that particular area. So budget doesn't have to be super large for that. But then again, in the spring of last year, kind of when regionally financial institutions were kind of scrambling to figure out what a content strategy would look like for social media, having our really organic content that was us out in the communities was just clear to us that was performing so well. Just looking at the data, you'd see that huge spike there. And so we would just try to continue to boost that upward. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Do you have any tips for increasing followers?
Interesting question. Yes, I would say posting consistently with a point. Again, anyone can just spam post and that really won't get you anywhere. But I think if you can really say, this is valuable content for this reason, and you can put it out there, maybe you can put it out there at specific times. For example, we were posting just Monday through Friday between 9 to 5 because that's when I'm at work and that's when everyone's at work and that's what we're posting. But when I went home and thought about it, and then when I looked at the numbers, I thought, well, why aren't we posting on a Sunday evening? That's when I'm tuning into LinkedIn, preparing for the week and kind of tuning. I'm not sure everyone's on LinkedIn on Sundays, but you know what I mean. Sometimes kind of outside working hours, obviously, is when people are on social the most. So if you're able to utilize any data that's able to tell you when to post or who your audience is or what content your audience is most engaged with, recycle, reproduce, upcycle, and just repost that when it makes sense seasonally. For our content calendar, one of the things that we did was we also highlighted like National Pet Day or Small Business Month and, different types of events or observances or holidays that really spoke to our audience base, and then creating content around that. For example, like October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so we were able to create a ton of different types of content. We did a video interview, we did blog articles, we did static images, infographics to really be able to help support information and education on cybersecurity. We talk about cybersecurity a lot too, so it's a great topic. Does that kind of answer your question? Cool, thank you. Awesome. Anything else? Wonderful. Thank you so much.